because people don't talk about it, they think it's just them.
Yeah.
I've got really close friends. Like, I talk about everything, I think, apart from sex.
Yeah.
But actually to say, no, this turns me on, that actually turns me off.
Oh, I just remember crying and crying and crying and sobbing my heart out. I thought, I am never going to have a sexually exciting response in my body ever again.
So often it's the shame that holds people there. Talking about it breaks the shame. He admitted to his wife for the first time that he'd been looking at porn a lot, and he said exactly that when he told her.
Burst the bubble.
It burst the bubble. It broke it.
You said, you'd rather it in the day rather than evening. I'm like, I don't mind what time of day it is. I will be there.
We know that at the end of the day, physical intimacy has to be built on emotional intimacy.
Hey, it's Dan and Charlie here, and this is the Young Cubs Parenting Podcast. We're parents of 2 little boys, figuring it out as we go, usually somewhere between the school run and the tube to work.
We're not experts by any means. We're just a couple of parents doing our best on Struggle Street, but we have loved every minute of it and we want to get better at it. So we'll be talking to some good friends about parenting, faith, life, and the culture we're raising our kids in.
In every episode, we're going to be having honest conversations with people who've walked this path before or are walking it right now, sharing real stories, honest reflections, and the kind of wisdom you only get from doing the parenting thing day in and day out.
So whether you're in the chaos, the calm, or somewhere in between, join us on the journey. Subscribe to the Young Cubs channels, and remember, no perfect parents allowed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Young Cubs Parenting Podcast. My name is Dan, and this is my wife, Charlie. And today we've got a great conversation. We're talking about parenting, and we're actually going to look at the subject of sex, which I think is going to help us, and I hope it's going to help you. So with us today, we've got none other than Nicky and Sila Lee. Thank you guys for joining us.
It's lovely to be
Great to be with you.
I feel like I've known you guys for years. Like we did the marriage course, which you guys created, when we've been married 15 years now. So we did before we were married. So, I feel like I've known you guys for years, but more recently got to really get to know you guys. And the closer I get to you guys, the more I'm blown away by your character, the way you see life. And I always say you guys are like role models to us. You've been married for 4 decades.
Yeah.
You've got
coming up to 5, actually.
Coming up to 5.
Which is unbelievable to us.
You guys got 4 children, 10 grandchildren.
Yeah.
And
One on the way.
One on the way.
One on the way. So, lots of experience in real life. You guys have listened to couples and parents all around the world. So the parent and marriage course that, Alpha runs, 4 million people have done that. And is it 127 countries?
Yeah,
Which is
something like that.
crazy. Okay, so just a small thing we're talking about today. Thank you, first of all, just for joining us today on this parenting podcast. I think our heart for creating this podcast was just that parents will just, have a bit of the pressure released off their shoulders and just like enjoy parenthood. So I think before we get into the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts, we've got a few fast fire questions for you.
Quick fire parenting round for you guys. Okay. What's one thing your kids still expect you to pay for that you secretly can't believe you're still paying for?
Literally about 2 months ago, we went to be with 2 lots of our kids' families and them, and they paid. Which was the first
They
time.
took us out to
They
lunch.
took us out to lunch.
It was Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And they took us out to lunch and we looked at each other and went, wow, this is amazing. We've really graduated a new era.
Still expecting to pay the bill if we go out to have a meal together.
Okay. I'm not going to lie. I definitely, when we go out with our parents, I feel like we're always like, do you want to split it? And they always just like give us this look.
That's why you order like the steak and the big.
Yeah, we go big when we know the parents are paying.
I was joking.
I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, who's the fun parent and who's the rules parent?
Oh, gosh. I'm always the baddie. I'm the strict one.
Okay.
Right.
And
He's the soft touch.
you're fun.
Yeah, we might talk a bit more about that later, actually.
Yes. We can't wait to hear it.
That out.
I like that. There's layers to that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, most used parenting threat when they were younger.
I think it was probably no pocket money. Was the main one.
Yeah.
They didn't get much pocket money, so it wasn't much of a threat.
It wasn't much of a threat. That's true.
That's a good one. That's a good. Maybe we should try that one because ours is you're going to go in time out. You're going to go in time out,
Okay.
isn't it? That we often say. Okay, what's the ultimate parenting fib you have ever told?
Oh, gosh, don't. I still feel guilty about it.
Go on.
To all 4 of our kids, when they were teenagers, to, oh gosh, I don't even know how I even thought of taking them. The Thin Red Line, which is a really absolutely horrendous film about the war in
Asia, was it?
In Asia. Yeah. I think it was either the Japanese War or I can't quite remember, but it could have been the Korean War. Anyway, when we got to go, we bought the tickets, and I got all 4 kids, and we got to going into the actual, 15? And it was a 15. And the guy stopped us just as we were going into the actual cinema bit, and he looked at Josh, our youngest, and he said, "How old's he?" I went, "He's 15," just like that. And he was not 15. Right. He was only 14. And I mean, all the kids went, "Mum!" They'd never heard me lie before. Yeah. But I was so shocked how it came out so straight. Yeah. "Oh, he's 15. I mean, he was pretty close to being 15.
Yeah, yeah.
And lastly, what's the most brutal honesty you've ever received from one of your children?
Oh, that's me again.
I
can tell you.
I think it was when our son got married, our oldest son got married, and in his wedding speech, he talked about, she talked about pocket money, and he said, "Dad, you always showed us the value of money by giving us so little pocket money." It really didn't count for very much.
Love that.
Can I add one?
Yes, please do.
It was such a pivotal moment for me, actually life-changing moment, when our 3rd child, middle son, Barney, said to me one evening, he said, "Mum, you are always stressed with me." And I was so shocked, and it really brought me up short. And we then went on to have this really amazing conversation, and I realised, wow, I am stressed with him. He was about 14.
Okay. Right.
And our relationship wasn't going very well at the time. And I was the problem, I realised. And it was so amazing how we really talked, and I took it on board, and I had to make big changes.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really big learning curve for me as a parent. So it was very, very honest, but very good.
Yeah.
Helpful. That's good.
I mean, I love just that you're in a place where your kids have said something to you, and you guys haven't just disregarded it. You've actually listened and learned and applied something. If you guys have travelled all around the world, obviously we talked about 127 countries, 4 million people doing the parenting course or the marriage course. When it comes to parenting, are there some big questions that you feel like everyone's asking, or what would be some of the most common problems or questions people are facing?
Well, I think today it's all around the digital world. And it's, because it's relatively new. Kids having phones, having smartphones, and how do you control what they watch, how much, when should they have a smartphone? It's these questions have risen to the fore. Of course, when we started doing parenting stuff, these questions didn't exist. We had other challenges, but now I think that would be the number one.
And I think a secondary one is, how do you juggle it all? Because, by and large, many couples, 2 parents are working. And it's interesting. And this is more so now, as people get together later, have kids later, they're full on in their career, and they're full on with young kids. And that is a very challenging combination.
Yeah.
And I think it's about, how do we navigate that?
And I guess that's great for me and Dan. We both work full time. We travel a lot, and we've obviously got 2 little boys, 7 and 3. Just to throw you on the spot there, what would you say to someone else that is feeling maybe a bit overwhelmed in this season and struggling a little bit with juggling it all? I guess the other question is, what does it mean to juggle it all well?
You basically, the bottom line is, you can't do everything. But as a parent, it's the only job that you alone can do. Other things other people can do for you, but you are what's the word? I can't think of the right word.
You're the only one who can.
It's a non-negotiable. I mean, that's who you are. You can parent. But I think people that the early years are absolutely critical, but they go very quickly. And actually to really set some priorities right at the beginning, to be intentional and realise, not you give up necessarily your work, but you prioritise being a parent as the most important job. And so, when they're very little, under 18 months, really they need to have one of you as the main carer to be spending most of the time, so that you are the key caregiver, the person who they bond with. And then it changes to, before they're under 5, that's still important, but you can increase more. But they need you around. And then, once they're in school, it's a different deal, but they still need you around, but not in the same way as in the early years. So the early years are critical, I think. And I would want to say we can all, we had to juggle it and we had to put in things to make sure we gave the time.
Yeah, and what was interesting, I think in our minds, we thought once our children get to be teenagers, they're able to travel by themselves in London. They're pretty independent. They can handle money and so on. I think what we realised was they actually, in one sense, they need us more.
Right.
They don't need us as much physically because they can.
They're independent.
They can dress themselves and so on. But they need you because of they have big questions, which they will be wrestling with and thinking through. And usually the time they need you most is at about 11:30 at night when you are absolutely whacked, need to go to sleep. But those we realised are probably the most significant conversations you're going to have with them late at night. For us, it was sitting on the stairs. I don't know why. It was always the top step of the stairs. That's where I remember having long conversations after I was longing to be in bed.
Yeah.
Love that.
I really do love that. When it comes to us and like our kids, one thing that, there's many things that have changed, but one thing that definitely was impacted was, I think, sex life. And I think it was something that I wasn't really expecting, just because, it's not like one of us like really wanted it and the other one didn't. It's like, I think both of us just felt tired, but yet when we were tired, it meant that we didn't have sex. Then when we didn't have sex, we felt apart, not close, not intimate. But one of the things I do love in the marriage course is that you guys talk about sex and good sex and what that looks like. And there's this acronym called SPARK. And I was just wondering, I think it's helped us so much if you guys would just unpack that for us.
Yeah.
The S stands for speaking. It's so easy. If things start to get difficult, we stop talking. But actually, you need to talk even more. You need and finding a way, however sort of difficult it is to start with, just to start talking about what it means to you, what sex means to you, what your sexual relationship, and what you're finding difficult, what you are hoping for. And actually, when couples start having those conversations, it gets easier.
Right.
So the speaking is really important.
And then P is for prioritise. So we really need to prioritise our sexual relationship just as much as any other part of our relationship. And in marriage, we can, it's quite easy to compartmentalise and, think, oh, well, our marriage is sort of, there's the sexual relationship, there's our kind of intellectual relationship, there's our emotional relationship, there's the kind of leisure relationship, fun things together, all of that. And we break it into different things. But actually everything affects the rest. We have this saying, sex is not just the icing on the cake. It's a vital ingredient of the cake itself. Good. And I think to actually answer your thing about becoming new parents, that actually, well, one of the things, we all have phones, and we all, we spend probably longer than we would like to on phones. But when you have a baby, hormones kick in a way that they override even phones, and hormones play a big part in terms of our sexual relationship. And what happens is a woman will feeding a baby, nurturing a baby, releases oxytocin. That's for bonding. That's critical. And her focus is totally on that. And for the man, it's not the same. And so it can very quickly, you can have this sort of like divide that grows, and he feels kind of like, I'm not in on this. And I'm just, but interestingly, when you make love and you have an orgasm, oxytocin, the same hormone, is released. So making love is bonding in the same way that nurturing a child is bonding. And I think that's absolutely fascinating. And I think God created us that way for a reason.
Yeah.
But as Nikki said, I mean, if you're going to prioritize your sexual relationship, you have to communicate. And a woman has to be able to communicate, this is how I am right now. This is what I'm going through. And it can be really tough. And really, if you've been through quite a lot of people have difficult births, and it's quite, you're like navigating how you're going to do life, you have to talk about it. But you do have to prioritize caring for each other in a sexual way, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And at the very beginning, it has to be kind of different, and the man has to understand and listen and communicate.
We had a journey with that, right?
Yeah, I think that's what we could probably relate to the most, is that I had a not very nice birth my first time round, and as a result of that, it was like the last thing I wanted to do. And physically, obviously, I was just not there at all for some time. And then, so there's obviously this divide, right? One of you has the sex drive to do it, and the other doesn't necessarily. And I think I found the conversation really difficult, didn't I? Because I almost didn't want to admit that this was an issue. So when Dan would want to talk about it, and he's a lot better at communication than me, very let's just talk about anything and everything now. I'm kind of, I don't want to talk about it, because if I don't talk about it, the issue will go away. And it didn't go away. And then we kind of had these, I reckon it just kind of built up, didn't it, where we'd be forced to talk about it, and then it would almost end up in a bit of a mini kind of argument. So I can totally relate to that divide.
So S is speaking. P is prioritising.
And the A is anticipating. And we put that in because at the end of the day, our mind is our most important sort of sexual asset. It's in our mind as to we choose where we're going to focus our thoughts, where we're going to focus our erotic thoughts, and anticipation builds desire. I remember one couple, this is years ago, I think we just got married, and I remember one couple just saying this phrase, the best sex starts at breakfast. And we sort of pondered on that, and we realised how true that is. It's when you have sort of private signals, private language, you anticipate, so that, and it's not just you get to bedtime and then one or other of you think, right, let's go. You're actually building up through a day, or even possibly 2 days, I don't know. But the anticipation is really important. And I think this is where pornography is so, gosh, it's hard today. It is so destructive, and it's so prevalent. And this stuff is so easy to get into, but so hard to get out of. And so, while on the one hand, we want to do everything we can to help people, to warn people of the dangers of it, and say there's something so much better than pornography, which is the real life, flesh and blood relationship. Pornography doesn't touch that. Also, we want to help people who have got into it to say, get help, find a way, and start. And that means starting a conversation with somebody. Sometimes that's not your partner, actually. Sometimes, and I suppose my experience is more with guys who I've talked to about this stuff. But it's so often it's the shame that holds people there. Talking about it breaks the shame. Finding someone that you can trust, who will, and sometimes be accountable to, can break that. And oh my goodness, we know marriages that have been transformed when people have taken this stuff really, really seriously.
I'm in a group chat with a load of other dads, and we're just on WhatsApp, and we're always just trying to encourage each other. But we will say, statistics say that, out of this group, there should be this amount of people who are looking at porn. If any of you are struggling with that, let's just have a conversation. And, one of the guys said, come on, let's all screenshot our history. But I don't think anyone would ever do that in the chat. We're mates, we're not there yet. But I think what it did do is just get us to have a conversation. And I have great conversations with my mates. And it's that shame cycle that you talk about. And what I found out is once they voiced it, the shame just lifts. They're like a completely different person. And so awkward in the moment, but worth it, right?
And we know one couple who actually are amazing. They talk about it on the marriage course and the pre-marriage course. He admitted to his. I don't think they were married. Were they married, Danny?
No, I think they were.
He admitted to his wife for the first time that he'd been looking at porn a lot, and he said exactly that when he told
burst
her.
The bubble.
It burst the bubble. It broke it, and it took her time because it was deeply shocking for her, and people so often feel betrayed when they know their partner's been looking at porn. They feel it's an aspect of unfaithfulness, whereas the person looking at porn may not see it like that at all. But when they started talking, she rebuilt the trust. They had to go through this process of forgiving. But honestly, you look at them now, and this is a couple who are really well connected, but it was hard for them. They had to work through it, and they talked actually about they had a community, very like what you're describing, Dan, community in their church where they were able to voice it and to work through it.
Love that. SPA. Just how do you feel like we do on the speaking? Prioritizing and anticipating.
I'm testing you.
No, I'm just wondering.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's a talker. I'm getting better at that.
We've been prioritising
yes,
it, though.
Yeah, we do that. Some things that really helped me with that, I think, was especially like post kids, and even being in the season when you've got two small kids, because I just want to say that I don't think it 6 months goes and then you're like, woohoo, let's go again. You go through seasons.
Yeah.
But I think prioritising, we've definitely had to get better at. Someone was saying to me as well that, because I think for me it became this big deal in my head. So I didn't want to have the conversation. And obviously it was creating more of this divide. I was aware of it. He was aware of it. It was becoming this thing. And then it was a mind thing for me. Then it's a really big deal. But one of the things, because we did go and see someone in the end, didn't we? And one of the things they said is it's not necessarily about the sex, the act of, intercourse. You can be intimate in other ways. And so I do that because you might not necessarily,
totally.
At the end of the day, when you're exhausted, it's not necessarily, you might not end up doing that. But if you had a bath together or you do other things that are intimate, it releases the same oxytocin. And that was really helpful for me as well. And you
said you preferred it in the day rather than evening because you're tired.
Wow, we're
evening.
Really going there today, guys. So now you know my preferences. You want to go into positions? What is this?
No, I'm just saying because it is speaking and prioritising what you guys are saying. And I think the moment you said, you'd rather it in the day rather than evening, I'm like, I don't mind what time of day it is. I will be there. We can do this.
But well done, guys. That is so good to have those sort of honest conversations. And even to the sort of details, what you enjoy each other doing and not doing. I think some couples, they put up with stuff just because they don't want to sort of hurt their partner by saying, I've never really enjoyed that for the last how many years it is. Yeah. But actually just say, no, this turns me on. That actually turns me off.
Yeah, good.
And responsiveness, which is the next bit of the spark, is very much about understanding how we each work and what we each like and don't like, and that we will be different. I mean, we are very careful not to kind of define that men are like this and women are like this, but there are some very, kind of different ways of responding sexually, and I think we have to. That's where the speaking, the communicating is so good to be doing this thing of talking and saying, this is what I like, but this really turns me off, and to do it in a way that you're not hurting each other, but it's about discovering, and one of the, I'll tell you a bit about when we had a really hard time was when I think it was between our third and fourth child, so.
It was between our third and fourth child. Yes,
I remember very well.
Exactly. And we used to try and prioritise going away for about 3 days, just the two of us, and we would leave our kids with either Nicky's family or my family. And I was so looking forward to this time away. We'd got it booked in, and I was thinking, gosh, maybe this time will be the time when kind of the spark that I thought really had gone out of our sex life, because I did not feel like it it would change it all. well, after the first night, I just remember crying and crying and crying and sobbing my heart out. I thought, I am never going to have a sexually exciting response in my body ever again. And I mean, I was in despair because that's what it felt like, you know. And I mean, Nicky was incredible.
Which put me in despair. No.
And he listened and listened and listened, and I talked and talked and talked and talked. But actually, it was that thing of us communicating together and then realising, okay, so, you know, we're 3 kids in, we've got little kids, I'm exhausted, hormones are still doing crazy things. We've got to give each other a bit of slack. And then, you know, we discovered there are other ways and other sort of things we can do to make each other have this sexual kind of excitement, but not through actually making love. And
that was a revelation.
It was
for
a
me.
revelation.
I grew up in a home, I mean, a wonderful home, a loving home, but I never saw any sort of physical affection really between my parents. So it wasn't really part of my thinking. And actually maintaining physical closeness, physical affection,
That's good.
Skin to skin, actually is really, we're built for that, actually, and we need that. So during that period, which was difficult for both of us.
Yeah. But I'm very pleased to say that after our 4th child and kind of a little bit down the line, my body came back to being totally responsive. And so for anybody who's going through little kids and struggling with your sexual relationship for whatever reason, and there are loads of very common and normal problems. You know, it really is we can encounter issues and problems at lots of different times, and we mustn't think, oh gosh, right, that's it, it's over, it's all a failure, it'll never happen again. Not at all.
Yeah, I think that's what breaks my heart the most, is because people don't talk about it, they think it's just them. Yeah. Like, I've got really close friends. Like, I talk about everything, I think, apart from sex.
Yeah.
And so when we were in that season, I don't think I spoke to anyone, obviously not even Dan. So I was feeling on my own. And so when I have had the odd conversation with people and they've kind of brought it up, I can be like, oh yeah, you know, that happened to me. And you can see the relief that they're just, oh, okay, it's not just me. And I think for the man, correct me if I'm wrong, he doesn't want to sit there with his mates going, oh, you know, my sex life is dead right now. It's not really a conversation.
One other thing just to say on the responsiveness is in understanding each other better. I think that very often as a woman, I think women can feel, oh, the guy's he just wants sex. And it's just all a physical thing. And it's like, you know, he's just got an overdone sex drive and, you know, da-da-da-da-da. I think that is a big misconception. And actually, I think for a man to actually make love is so much deeper and more to do with their self-esteem, their identity, who I am, and all of that. And I think as a woman, we have to really recognise that and not trash that and not sort of just have this preconceived thing and dismiss when maybe we don't feel like it. And I think responsiveness to each other in understanding where each other's coming from. You know, we've talked about when a woman has a baby, that's a really challenging thing for a man to understand. But I think for a woman to really see, actually, I can give myself to my husband and it can be totally the making of him. It can be his sort of thing that will make him feel $1 million. And that's a beautiful thing in
and I remember one woman realising, she said, when I say no to sex, when I say no to him, I'm not just saying no to sex, I'm saying no to him as he is. And that really changed her thinking about it. And I think, if I can say this, darling, I think I didn't think you returned to where you were before. I think sex got better.
Oh, yeah.
After, I don't know how many years into marriage we were by then. We must have been
15 years.
15 years, 10, 15, something like that, 15 years into marriage. Go on.
There's a great survey that we came across in the Times newspaper, which was looking at the best age
for various activities.
And it said something like the best age for remembering things is 20 when you're 25.
Right.
Okay, so we're all
best
over that
age
one.
for learning a language, I think, was 7 or something.
8.
7 or 8, yeah.
Best age for doing maths in your head. I cannot do maths at all, let alone just in my
This was
head.
really surprising.
Neither can
Is
this guy.
50.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
And then the best age for having sex,
For good sex.
Drum roll,
Best age for
please.
good sex, is 66.
Is it?
Wow.
And this was a really big survey.
No
it was
way.
huge.
Isn't that amazing?
66.
Amazing.
But I
It's
think
so
it's
counter
Oh.
what
Yeah.
our culture thinks and says. That actually the relationship is to get better, it's to mature.
And do you
with
think
age.
your sex life got better because you'd done these things like speaking and
Totally.
prioritising? And
It's a journey, and you
Okay.
never get to the end of discovering
Right.
amazing things, and it's still that journey.
And I
for
think
us.
not giving up when things are hard.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
That, every couple goes through a season when
Yeah.
things are hard, and sometimes several seasons.
Yeah.
But not giving up, recognising how central it is. Just as you guys talked about with the, keeping connected, keeping closely connected.
And I think we would really want to encourage any couple, if you have an issue and you're really struggling, please get help. And there are some really great psychosexual counsellors who absolutely, that is their passion to help couples to make this part of their relationship really good.
So we did S, we did P, we did A, we did R. Did we do K?
No, we haven't
Okay.
finished.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't leave everyone.
K.
Otherwise, they're going to go to spa.
Yeah.
K is for kindness. I know it doesn't quite end in an ing, but we had to do being kind. But we put that there because we know that at the end of the day, physical intimacy has to be built on emotional intimacy. And I talked earlier about the sort of, best sex starts at breakfast. And part of that is about the talking, but part of it also is just about being considerate towards each other and meeting emotional needs. And it is through doing sometimes quite little things for each other that then make the other one feel loved. And when you feel loved, you're much more likely to be all these other things, to be responsive, to want to show love and so on. So at the end of the day, kindness, emotional intimacy builds then. And I think sometimes for couples where they may have grown apart, their sexual relationship may be really difficult. I would say the two things. One, you've said about trying to find ways of staying physically sort of intimate still without necessarily making love. And the other is finding ways of showing kindness to each other, looking out for each other. What can I do that makes you feel loved? What can I do to make your day better?
Love that.
I feel like as well, it's kind of a cycle with that, because I feel like after sex as well, we're actually kinder to each other as well, because it brings you closer together.
Totally.
And then I feel like, it's harmony again. And it's, it feels, so I think it's like this little cycle that
And
goes
it's
round.
very powerful, isn't it? We mustn't underestimate. And that power can be used for harm. We see that in all the sort of pornographic industry. Or it can be used for good, to join us closely together.
And I think under kindness, you have to give recognition to the fact that many people in the world, tragically today, have suffered at the hands of abuse in some way or another. And I mean, I think the UN statistics are that 1 in 3 women suffer some kind of abuse at some point. And, actually God designed sex for the most intimate, trusting, beautiful thing of, being in a marriage relationship where you trust and there's this kind of core of love. And that's when we can give ourselves and be most vulnerable. But when that is abused, and so much of it is in the bedroom, and there's there's control or coercion or abuse in some way or another, that is tragic. And I think that kindness is we would put all of that under that quality in a couple relationship is so powerful. And I mean, people say to us often, what kind of things would you advise people to look for when they're looking for a partner, for a marriage partner? And honestly, top of the list would be, look at the person's character, see, are they a kind person? How do they treat their mum? How do they treat kids? How, are they kind? Because that will play out in every aspect, and particularly in your sexual relationship.
Yeah. Nikki, you mentioned something earlier about making sure that you are physically touching throughout the day as well. I think this ties into the anticipating and stuff. And one of the things that we watched the other day was also saying the impact on your kids when you are physically demonstrative. Yes. In front of them, and what that does for them and stuff. And I think that's really important. We kind of watch that and try to be really intentional with that as well. We work both, like I said, full lives, and sometimes we can walk out the door and forget to, give each other a kiss. And so we've tried to be like way more intentional in kind of go out the door and I'll come back in, make sure I kiss him.
Charlie, that's so good, because I think so much of it is about creating little habits, which they take a choice. They are intentional, but then you get into these positive habits which make a difference. And as you say, your kids notice. They take it in. They take in whether you touch each other. They take in whether you listen to each other. They take in whether you're being kind or demanding. And they take in far more than we realise.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true.
Thank you for sharing the spark. What do you call it? An acronym? Yeah. It's like literally it helped us, and I hope it helps many others. Let's just change tack slightly, if that's all right. I think one of the things that I hear from other dads and other mums is when they've both got different parenting styles. So like they really love each other, they want to spend the rest of their life together, but like they really do not agree on how they're raising the kids. How do you give encouragement and advice in that area?
Do you know,
can you relate?
Oh,
yes, very much so. I think we gave away a little bit earlier.
It's very, very
who's the strict one, who's the fun
thing.
one?
Right.
I remember years ago reading, I think she was a psychologist, she was a child rearing expert, and she said, really, parenting is quite simple. It comes down to giving two things, love and boundaries. Or actually, she put it in slightly more technical terms. She said it was warmth and firmness. And what we realised from that is that generally between the warmth and the firmness, one parent will tend to go more towards the warmth, the other parent will tend to be more towards the firmness. Of course, it's on a spectrum, but they're very unlikely to be in exactly the same place. And I think the danger in parenting is that we polarise. And what happens is that the firmer one, the stricter ones, becomes more strict in order to compensate for their partner.
Right.
So at that point, the other partner tries to become more warm and more loving and less strict to compensate for their partner. So they move further and further
That's
apart.
interesting, yeah.
And actually, as parents, somehow we've got to try to work together, holding both of those two things in mind. And I think it really helped. It really helped us when we sort of realised that where one of us was better on the loving, warmer side, the other was better on the boundaries, the stricter side. If I can just tell you a little story. When our children were little, Sila would give them tea. And we'd have tea together as a family, usually. But Sila had a rule at tea, and that was you can eat as much as you like at tea time, but after tea time, there is no more food. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay? Because otherwise you knew it just sort of
we
go
need
on
to do that.
endlessly.
Our kids are cereal snackers. They're terrible.
So anyway, if I was saying goodnight to one or more of them, there'd be one of them who'd say, "Oh, Dad, I am so hungry. I can't get to sleep." And my heart would go out to, usually it was him, one of the boys. My heart would go out to him and I'd say, "Oh, Benj, I'm so sorry. What would you like?" "Oh, Dad, if I could just have a bowl of cereal and perhaps a sandwich, be able to get to sleep." So I think, oh, that's not too difficult. So I go downstairs and make them a sort of, 3-course picnic. And understandably, Sila, as she discovered, be absolutely furious because I completely trashed her rule. So I sort of realised, no, we need to stick together.
Right.
And children have this extraordinary ability with parents to divide and rule. I don't know where they get it from, but somehow they work out who's the softer touch, and then they work on that side in order to get what they want.
Who do you think is softer out of me and you?
Well, they ask me something and I'm going to give in. I just say, go and ask your mum.
Yeah. He does a lot. They come in and I say, what did your dad say? They said to ask you.
Yeah.
That's bad, isn't it? That's not good to do that, right?
Help us.
It's not altogether a bad thing, because at least it means they're getting one answer rather than two different ones.
It's true.
And sometimes we would have to say, I actually don't know what the answer is right now, but we'll have a conversation, about it.
Yes.
And then you have to actually work it out. And that happens more and more as they get older.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you don't really talk about parenting styles before you're married,
No.
What are you going to be like a dad? How do you...
And very often it's to do with, it's not only to do with, but it is what we are used to in our growing up.
Right.
And what we experienced or didn't experience. And we will either go towards one that we had and really felt was good, or we totally say, well, I'm never going to be like that.
React against it.
We react against it. So I think our backgrounds do impact how we are.
Yeah.
And a lot, actually, when we're doing, you mentioned the parenting courses we do, quite a lot of that is helping parents to reflect on their upbringing, because we tend to respond without really recognizing where it comes from. But I think when we look at our upbringing, then we make a decision. I want to do it like that because that was great in my upbringing. I don't want to do it like this because this wasn't so good. Because when we reflect, we have a choice.
Yeah, I love that. With 4, like you said, grown-up kids now, I guess I'd love to know, you've got 4 kids, you've got 10 grandchildren, 1 on the way. What does marriage success look like to you now, and parenting success? Because it must change, right? I guess you've been married, is it 50 years this year or next year?
Next year.
Next year. I mean, that's such an achievement. What does success in your parenting and marriage look like for you now?
Oh, Charlie, that's such a good question. I think for us, it's all about the relationships. It's not about what our children have achieved or haven't achieved. It's about the relationships between us and actually enjoying being together. And for any parent who's got more than one child, very often it's the sibling relationships, the sibling rivalry, the sibling that they are really struggling with. And we had plenty of that. We had a girl and 3 boys, and the boys were always just ragging and fighting and sometimes arguing about stuff. But seeing them now as the best of friends, there is nothing. I don't think there's
our daughter.
Oh, and our daughter. Yes,
our
I said
daughter.
it.
Don't forget her.
I don't think there's anything to beat it.
Yeah.
I
Just
love
seeing the way they love being together. They will seek advice from each other. And now you see it with the next generation, Dan. The cousins love being together. And we're talking about a 17-year-old boy having a 5-year-old or even a younger 3-year-old niece.
He's amazing.
And seeing him with his young cousin is just the loveliest thing. So I think it's all about the relationships for us between them.
I love that.
I think for Nicky's already mentioned this in the thing of, I think as parents, all of us will underestimate what it is that our kids learn most from us. And it is they watch us. It's what we model in our life, what they see day in, day out, how we are. And they know whether it's authentic and whether we're being real and authentic. And in terms of, for us, with our Christian faith, that was something that we, from the moment our kids before they were born, we were praying for them, and we have prayed for them every day, sought to pray for them every day. And that they too would have a strong faith in Jesus. And we can't make a child have faith, but we can nurture them in a way where they see an authentic, what our beliefs and our values are. Or whether you have faith or not, you have beliefs and values. And do we model honesty? Do we model generosity? Do we model compassion? Do we all of those things, those values? And then, if you have faith, are we modeling a real authentic relationship? And I think for us, that has been the most precious thing, to see our adult children, all of them coming at their own time and in their own way and in their own space into a genuine faith. And now seeing them passing that on to their...
seeking to build that sort of environment for their children, where it's a very natural thing to talk about faith, very natural thing. If there's a tragedy, if there's a real trial, to pray together about it, and to talk about really difficult questions, things which aren't obvious answers, but have an open environment where they're wrestling with stuff, whether it's to do with sex, as we've been talking about, or the devices and phones and stuff online.
Big life issues, suffering, and
war,
and we
things.
are amazed to see our kids with the older one, well, even the younger ones now, how they have this extraordinary way of asking their kids questions, listening.
Not dictating to them,
I love that.
Setting an environment where they can explore.
And that's exactly, I think, what we hope for with our kids. I really don't want them to feel like they have to believe to please us. I want them to find it themselves. And the way you guys have just modelled it is, I think, what we hope to do as well.
I think what you've shared today is going to be so helpful. I guess I would just love to wrap up with a couple of questions. If someone is struggling with something that we talked about, whether that is intimacy in their relationship, breakdown there, whether it's you mentioned briefly about abuse that might have happened, what would you say to that person that's watching that doesn't know what to do, they're feeling stuck or in despair, or what advice would you give?
You go, Dave.
Well, we would say get help. I mean, there is really good help available for whatever issue it is that you are struggling with. And I think the first port of call would be to go to your known doctor, your GP, and say, this is the issue. What would you suggest? And they can refer you to all different people that's appropriate for whatever the issue is. And as I think we mentioned about psychosexual counsellors, there's some great psychosexual counsellors. And then, any other issue as well, that you can be pointed in the right direction, and help really is out there. And don't put it off. That's our encouragement.
And secondly, I guess for anyone watching that would like to check out the marriage course or the pre-marriage course or the parenting course, where would you point them to?
The best thing would just be to go to the website, themarriagecourse.org, and anybody can see if there is a course that is running somewhere near them, whether it's pre-marriage for couples who are either engaged or wanting to explore marriage, the marriage course for any couple already married, or for a couple who've been together just for some years but aren't married. They're very welcome indeed, and parenting courses for younger children and for teenagers. And some of the courses run in person and some of them run online. Okay. So whatever works best for you.
Yeah.
That's the end of today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. And please do subscribe if you haven't already. And if you know a parent who might be inspired or encouraged by this, please do share it with them. Have a good week. Lots of love.
Take care.